So we're going to go over back to Brian now with the next topic. With 15,000 people making the decision in the world, how should we be interacting with them?
Great. Okay, welcome back to the kitchen table. And
Sunberg, you're going to read out this question, yeah? This issue.
Yeah, so as there are only seemingly a few families controlling most of the money and, you know, maybe 10 to 15,000 major decision makers in all governments and armies of the world and corporations, so that's a really, really small percentage of the people on the planet, is the best chance we've got of creating transformation of the decisions that are being made and the way in which resources are being used to send, as a mass population of the planet, love and light unconditionally to these people to affect the decisions that they're making on a daily basis. Because somehow, if I feel disconnected to these people and call them them, which seems to be a typical way of going about feeling disconnected from the people that make the decisions on our behalf, if they become a them, then there isn't oneness in the world. So if we are all one, and they are making bad decisions that aren't for the highest good of the general populace of the planet, then the best thing we can do is to help them through unconditionally loving and accepting them and sending energy that at least potentially will affect the decisions that they make on a daily basis.
Who would like to take that one up?
I think love is the key, but is unconditional love the key? This is the thing. I think the definition of love does not mean that you always, you know, if you love someone enough, you'll let them go. If you love someone enough, you'll point out when they're going where they're taking steps wrong. I think there's a big mistake that can happen, especially in the New Age community, which is what a lot of people call the green meme, where people love. There's this whole idea of unconditional love, but it gets to the point where you must never say anything negative to anybody. You must never point out anybody's problems, and that actually creates, you know, dissatisfaction in people, and people don't communicate with each other properly. So I think the definition of love, yes, we should send love, but love isn't always about unconditionally accepting what anyone's doing. I think if you love someone, you can point out in the right way where people are going wrong. So I think that's a really important issue to understand, is the nature of love and how that love. I don't think unconditional love is the answer.
So what you're saying then basically is both carrot and stick. You know, we'll love you as long as you do this. Yeah. And if you don't do this, you get the stick. Wow. No?
I also think there's two parts to evolution as well. As in general in evolution, they say there's like the fittest, the survival of the fittest. That's what they say, and that mindset is what rules a lot of the governing bodies all over the world. You know, the people that have got the money, the people that are in power, they kind of see it that way. You know, it's a survival of the fittest. But there's also the other side of evolution, which is cooperation. I mean, no cell would have ever evolved without cooperation. The human body is cooperation. And I think what we're trying to do around the table today is taking that approach a bit more to create a new alternative to just survival of the fittest, and to create the idea that, you know, through cooperation we become a big body of people working together in harmony, and that can't be achieved through simply through these people trying to control us in that mindset of, you know, well, we're more powerful than you, so we're going to tell you what to do. You know, my father was rich. He set it up for me, and they set it up for them, and we're in charge, so we're going to tell you what to do. That is kind of like the old way of doing things. But we have got the opportunity to change that through cooperation, and I think that has got a lot to do with love. But just like a cell has to exclude the external world of incoming viruses and God knows what, we almost have to do that as well. We can't let basically somebody like George Bush or Tony Blair into a circle in a way, because they're toxic. I mean, their whole mindset is toxic. The way that they see things is toxic. Their solutions to problems is power over rather than cooperation and understanding. And it's just not going to work in the long run. I mean, obviously, we're going to end up blowing each other to pieces if it carries on like that.
I think what you're talking about is the sort of the new way of being that everybody hopes is going to kind of unfold. But the question is, how do you move that new way of being along? I mean, what is it that you do? I think all agreed that the old paradigm is not a paradigm that's workable anymore. And everybody feels that the paradigm's breaking down and that things are shifting. And is it love that's moving that along, is the question. I mean, just by loving and unconditionally loving people, is that enough to actually make this paradigm crumble? And it certainly seems to be working, I think. I mean, I think that does seem to, to be a good path. It's the path of not... It's a path of allowing, really, because the more that you allow these things to happen... So whether it's conditional love or whether it's allowing in a kind of, I don't know, maybe Taoist way, you're just allowing these things to sort of unfold, because the longer you leave the old paradigm to run, the more it starts to crumble. And you can see it happening with things like the Catholic Church and so forth, where it is actually just eating itself. So I'm not sure about love, but I certainly think allowance is maybe it.
I also, I agree with you, definitely allowing, but also I have complete faith in humanity, and I have complete faith that the karmic energy is shifting now, and that old system just cannot continue in its present trajectory just because we're reaching that place of crisis where people are going to wake up and actually realise. And I have total faith that that's what's going to happen, and we might be the pioneers in this movement. But it won't take long for people to wake up, and change can happen very, very quickly. It doesn't have to take centuries of change. It can happen tomorrow, and it's already happening. And, Jesus said if one or more people come together, and there's been more than one or more. There's thousands of people meditating for peace in India. Every day you've got meditators, thousands and hundreds of thousands of meditators meditating for world peace. All over people are meditating, Vipassana meditators. It's happening, and we just have to sit back and be patient enough and enjoy the ride, really enjoy the ride, and start creating the reality as we would like it, because you can't stop these things. This is a trajectory that has to play out. We've been slaves for many hundreds of years. We were born into this slavery. It hasn't just happened. They started it, especially in the UK, when they brought in the Commons Law, and they stopped us having access to our own land, and brought the landholders came along and actually cut us off from our rights and our human rights, and it's been going on like that for ages. Same with corporations, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen continuously like that. And I just really believe that people are waking up and realizing there is a different way to do things, and it's going to be a matter of time. But if we just stick with being who we are and doing what we need to be doing and following our hearts, then it will eventually happen that the snowball will start rolling down the hill, and you can't stop it. And the people that are creating the disturbances on the planet will end up creating their own reality, and we'll end up creating a totally different reality, simultaneously to them. But ours will be a lot more magical. It'll be a fantastic party, and that's where I'm living towards, and that's where I'm going.
Wow, thank you. I'd like to spare a thought for the leaders of the world, people like Gordon Brown. Just imagine that a million people in this country have decided they're pissed off with him and they're projecting their negativity at him. If we give that unconditional love as a support to him and people like him, maybe they can escape that negativity and we can tip the balance. And that's really what this unconditional love and compassion is about. It's about giving them the support that they need to make the right decisions.
I often also think that in this country, in the decisions and the powers and people like, we don't actually give enough thanks to what we do have in this country. I mean, you go to a third world country or to other places in the world, we live in luxury compared to a lot of us don't, but generally this country doesn't celebrate the things we have got out of our governments and systems, and I know there's a lot of faults and there's, some terrible things that they do, but, it's all about people working together with those that govern us. And right now has never been, we're heading towards a hung parliament, which I find so exciting, because it actually proves that there is nobody in power right now who actually knows what's going on. But, ask the people. You look in France, if the French get upset, they bring the motorways to a stop, they stop the trains, they really go for it. We're so passive in this country. Our government was recently up in the docks for being going to war illegally, the Iraq war was going illegally, but that got washed under the carpet because we cared more about who John Terry was sleeping with. That was more important to us. So I think it's about us, coming to our power and sending love to these people that are in power, but it's also us, our choices, our decisions, things that we do play an impact in that too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you made there. I feel we can send love and light and compassion to these people without getting involved, joining them or even fighting against them, because there's a feeling where if you fight something with force, it's just going to make it worse. So that's not the answer. It's and doing nothing is not the answer either. So it's on an energetic level we can send the love and light, and because maybe in this spiritual evolution that we're in, that they are going to, when they're ready, they're going to. I mean, they're kind of playing a part in this anyway, I feel. It's like if it wasn't for them, we'd have nothing to, there wouldn't be this, there's always been this, cosmic battle as far as I've perceived. And it's that's the whole game that we're playing. And it is just it's almost like a, the theatre on the stage playing out. And, so you really have to do anything. You can chill out and know that is what's going to play out, and it's been happening for eons in history and different ways, and that.
Yeah, I mean, it was me that put the question forwards, and it came from a sense that this relatively small group of people have got the foot on the brake of transformation, and that they think they're doing the right thing. They can justify their actions to themselves, and they're to some extent obviously deluded, depending on who it is and what the circumstances of what they're doing. And so the desire came from, instead of feeling powerless to do anything, because I'm never going to go and meet these people, you can't go and knock on their door and reason with them, they just don't want to hear, right? So as an individual that hates the idea of being powerless and wants to see change happen in the world, that what I have got is my love, compassion and energy, and I can put that and direct it where I will. And as far as I'm aware, if I can identify a target audience, I can affect that target audience with my love. So if I want to love the Queen, for instance, I can love the Queen because I know who she is. I might never meet her. So if I can identify that the major decision makers and rich people of the world need a little bit of help to make the right decisions, then I as an individual will and can send my energy, but I can also arrange through festivals and things that happen to be my forte, get masses of people to send positivity and love to these people, knowing that is the only true medicine and answer to fear, anger and the problems that we're facing. Love is the answer. What's the question is the point.
I guess what you're saying as well is it's like love is a vibration, and I can see what you mean is if we're all sending them that vibration, because that is our wish for to be on earth. We want a vibration of love, and if that's what we're sending to the so-called leaders, then that can only have a positive effect. If anything, it'll annoy them, and I'm definitely up for that.
I'd say something here. I'm going to step out of being the chairperson and just sit at the chair. Yeah, okay. Is that it's like the Beehive it could be viewed from the outside as being a fascist organisation, but the fact is it's a working organism, and the organism produces every kind of genetic pattern needed for the survival of the organism, and the global managers, that leaders, politicians, police, security forces, and all of that stuff are part of the survival of the species, from my point of view. That there aren't any bad people out there. Everybody out there is doing the best they know how, being driven by their genetic code. And loving everybody is recognizing and honoring that, and then allowing the evolution of the species to move forward without resistance from our ideas about how it should be. I'm going back to be the chairman now. Anybody want to pick that up?
Yeah, I've got a slight problem with the beaming love out there business. You know, I can love somebody occasionally. You know, I have loved people, but to actually, you know, as if it was some kind of a ray gun or something commodity that you'd put on a train and deliver through a letterbox or something. I don't know, you know, I'm not sure about that. I'm really not sure about that at all. I think possibly it might be a better way to actually make the focus more local. So in my case, I live in a small village. There's a community there. There's lots of love and hate, and there's everything from allotment wars to kind of all sorts of stuff that goes on in that setting. Now, I think to myself, if I can actually ameliorate that situation slightly and actually bring something in on the slipstream of that, which is actually giving people an alternative, you know, then, and it's addressing the situation on a larger scale with the need for local sustainability, etc., then perhaps that's a better way. And perhaps they're both good ways. I don't know. It's just that I personally find it difficult to actually target whoever it might be, George Bush or whoever's in at the moment, right, and actually send him a big kiss. You know, you know, how does it get there? And you know, is it genuine? You know, could I really make it genuine? Could I see that guy when he was a little baby, you know, and totally innocent? I don't know if I can do that personally.
I think it does have to be active love rather than passive love. You know, I think you can any act of love that you can make, you should do rather than passive love where you're allowing people to just behave however they're going to behave. The other thing I'd like to say is that you have to remember that George Bush, President Obama, Tony Blair, you know, these people, I think it's worth saying that these people have not just come from wherever they've come from and then suddenly they're in charge and they're making all the decisions. They're the people who are put as the public face of the people who make the decisions, which is why, you know, this is one good thing to send one person love, but you have to be careful with what you're trying to affect. Because at the end of the day, the easiest way to prove that the people in power are not actually the people making the decisions is because when they give a public talk, the words that come out of their mouth have been written by somebody else. Everyone has speech writers. So all the people that we see, they're not the actual people who make the decisions. You know, they're the people who are put as the public face of the decisions made. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. The other thing I'd like to say is that I think with the internet, one of the things I love the most about the internet is that it's almost a virtual collective unconscious of humanity. You know, we have the power with the internet to actually affect change, and especially to go against the controlled media. You know, all the controlled media is largely, if not entirely, about bad news. You know, we have the power to use the internet for good news and for love. You know, I think what we need to do is create a wider awareness of what we have in the internet, because the truth is, the internet, as an indicator of the global psyche of mankind, has every aspect in it. And I think one thing where we can make positive change that does affect the other side of the globe or any part of the world is through the internet. You know, and if we're sending our love through the internet, as well as you know, on different levels, through in the community to people and our neighbours, on the internet to people on the other side of the world, and well as general love, then positive change can be made.
I just saw that on our Twitter. Was it Twitter?
Yes,
We had a couple of people, someone from Toronto and from Wales, was talking about transformation and change, and that to remind me that there's something called World Shift, which is a group of groups around the world coming together, and what they're trying to do is, these G20s and these G8s and all these sort of Copenhagen climate summits and things like that. They're trying to organise alternative events to shadow these things. So all the governments and all the people who think they're running the world are going to come to the G20, and we're having a World Shift 20 to discuss the same topics, but we're going to have Deepak Chopra, Shivi Shankar, Bob Marks Hubbard, and spiritual people and other people who are outside of the political arena. We've got the guy was the first astronaut on the moon coming to talk, to start shadowing these events, because all these G20s and G8 events and these big, where they make huge impactful decisions about our future, and we don't get to hear about it. It's very much closed doors. So we wanted to promote the fact that there are organisations out there that are trying to make the change and send love. And the World Shift 20, the idea is to send them dynamic information to the G20.
I'm going to wrap this subject up. It's great, we could go on all day just any one of these subjects, but we're going to keep it moving on to something different. So I'd like a volunteer to go into the magic box here and pick out the next subject. And if you'd like to put an idea in here that you'd like to discuss, please write on a piece of paper and put it in the box. Okay, we're going to we're going to go to the presenter. So maybe. Can I pass that? Can I read it out? Then I'll pass it over to you. Okay. Okay, we're going to take a short break at the table and pass over to Natalie. And the question is going to be, how can we create an ongoing medium dynamic, is that the word? Yeah, dynamic, where shy, wise people can share their thoughts. Well, here it is, the kitchen table. Natalie, did you get that?
Okay. Wonderful. So that was our third talk that we've just had, our first subject, which was really about how can we interact with the main players in terms of who's controlling the money and who's controlling sort of the government. So there was a lot of sort of wonderful feedback there. So I'd quite like to talk to Jeremy, who was involved with the debate then, and just ask him how he thought it went. So this is Jeremy from Positive TV. Hi,
hello
Jeremy.
there.
Hello there.
Can move you across a little bit?
Yes, there you go.
Shift you over. Yeah, it was a fantastic debate actually, really interesting. Yeah. It's nice to have so many different kind of views around the table, although it tends to be that most people are headed in the same direction. However, there are some very different sort of aspects to that same direction. I guess in a thing like this, you're hardly likely to find that people are going to stand up and say, no, absolutely not, because everybody's quite a like-minded kind of individual in Glastonbury. Yeah. But you never really see there's so many shades, of the whole thing.
Yeah, so was the actual idea that yes, it is a good idea to send those people love and light and sort of meditate towards those?
Yes, I think there were two sort of schools. The one side was saying that it would be a fantastic idea to send your energy out. And the other side of it was sort of saying it would be very good for you to work on yourself and work on your own local kind of group.
That was one of the points that I picked up on, was the acting locally, again sort of feeding back to really working with your community.
Very strong, very good idea, and it's that kind of building small units on the ground level, and as you build those units up, everything just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it affects a change, really.
And so there are people out there, as I think it was, I can't think of her name, but somebody was saying that there are thousands of people that do actually every day meditate for world peace. So yes, it is a good idea if you feel that that's something you want to do, but otherwise, acting locally, thinking globally.
That's it. Yeah. Act local, think global.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy.